And now, Bilal has filed a $3 million lawsuit against Jada, claiming that she basically threatened, it comes across like a threat, like a...
Federal investigators don't open files on celebrity divorces. So when a $3 million lawsuit, a catch-a-bullet life-threatening message, and whispers of unreleased discs dragged Jada Pinkett Smith into their crosshairs, the question wasn't about infidelity anymore. This was supposed to be Hollywood's golden couple playing by their own rules, until the rules turned out to be a cover for something far uglier. Right now, two men who know the Smiths' secrets are suing for survival. One claims Jada threatened to have him harmed after he refused to sign an NDA. The other says Will Smith's team left HIV medication and a handwritten note reading, "I'll be back, just us," in his hotel room before firing him for reporting it. The lawsuits dropped within weeks of each other. $3 million from a longtime associate who says he barely escaped an assassination attempt in Colombia, and a wrongful termination claim from a violinist who found a red backpack, hospital papers, and a beer bottle in his violated Las Vegas suite, all while Will's lawyer calls the allegations baseless, and Jada's team stay silent. The math doesn't add up. You don't leave that kind of evidence behind by accident, and you don't threaten a man's life over gossip, unless the truth is worse than the lie. The feds aren't asking about a marriage. They're asking about obstruction, about tapes, about a system of control that just cracked open. And the real explosion isn't the lawsuits. It's what's on those discs, who else has copies, and why the Smiths' own children might be the only ones who know how deep this goes.
That Bilal says that Jada went up to him at a party back in November 2021 and said, if you keep talking about Will and about me, you're gonna catch a bullet. You're gonna catch it.
The $3 million lawsuit didn't come out of nowhere. It landed like a grenade on December 30th, 2025, filed by Bilal Salam, a man who'd been in Will Smith's orbit for nearly 4 decades, long enough to know where the bodies were buried, or at least where the cameras were hidden. Officially, it's about threats, coercion, and a forced NDA at Will's 53rd birthday party in September 2021. Unofficially, people close to the situation say it's about something far more explosive. Discs. Not just any recordings, but the kind that don't get mentioned in polite company. The kind that explain why a man who once called the Smiths family would suddenly need armed security in Colombia. The filing itself is brutal in its specificity. Salam claims Jada Pinkett Smith cornered him at a private theater screening, surrounded by 7 others, and delivered a message that wasn't just a warning, it was a promise. If you don't stop telling my personal business, you'll end up missing or catch a bullet. That's not how you talk to a friend. That's how you talk to someone who knows too much. And the timing? Just weeks after Will's infamous Oscar slap, when the world was still laughing at the memes, Jada was allegedly busy making sure no one else talked. The lawsuit doesn't just accuse her of intimidation, it accuses her of running a machine that required silence to function. What's being whispered now is that the personal business wasn't just about her marriage. It was about what happened in their home, who was invited in, and what got recorded when the doors were closed.
Right? That there was a retaliatory termination. That he went forward with these allegations, that he said that he felt unsafe, that he felt that there was some sort of harassment that was in existence here, and that complaint was the basis of his termination. If he's able to connect...
Then, there's the matter of the NDA. Salam says he was pressured to sign it that night, with the implicit threat that refusing would mean consequences. But here's where it stops making sense. If this was just about protecting a marriage, why involve 7 other people? Why make the demand in front of witnesses unless the goal wasn't just silence? It was complicity? And why, when Salam refused, did the threats escalate to the point where he claims he was run off a road in Colombia months later, leaving his driver with permanent brain damage? The lawsuit doesn't mince words. This wasn't just a dispute, it was a shakedown. And the fact that Jada's team hasn't denied the catch a bullet line, only called the entire lawsuit baseless, speaks volumes. You don't respond to a life-threatening message with legal jargon unless you're more worried about what else might come out. Industry sources say the real panic set in when Salam started hinting at the discs in interviews. Not vague rumors, but specific claims, videos, multiple discs, footage that allegedly shows Jada, Will, and other recognizable faces in situations that don't align with their public image. The kind of material that doesn't just end careers, it ends freedom. And the fact that he's still alive to talk about it? That's the part that has people wondering who else was supposed to disappear.
So according to the complaint, this all happened in March of last year while the violinist was on tour with Will Smith for Smith's global tour for his latest album based on a true story. And according to the complaint, there was this intrusion at his Las Vegas hotel room. He came back to his hotel, he says, and found that there was no forced entry, but that someone had entered the room and left a number of items.
The second lawsuit hit 5 days later, and it didn't just add to the chaos, it redefined it. Brian King Joseph, a violinist who toured with Will Smith, filed a personal harassment claim that read like a horror story. According to the documents, someone entered his Las Vegas hotel room in March 2025 without forced entry, leaving behind a handwritten note signed Stone F, a bottle of HIV medication under someone else's name, and a red backpack no one can explain. The note's wording, "Brian, I'll be back, just us," wasn't just creepy. It was personal. Joseph says he reported it immediately, only to be fired, shamed by tour management, and replaced before the European leg of the tour even began. Will's team called it a fabrication, but the details don't lie. The room was booked by Smith's production company. The key went missing for hours during rehearsal, and the only people with access were crew and Smith's inner circle. The lawsuit doesn't just allege harassment, it alleges a pattern. The facts strongly suggest the defendant Willard Carroll Smith was deliberately grooming and priming Mr. Joseph for further personal exploitation, the filing states. That's not an accident. That's a system. And the fact that Joseph's termination came after he reported the incident, with management telling him, "Everyone says you're lying," suggests this wasn't the first time someone spoke up and got silenced. What ties the two lawsuits together isn't just timing, it's the way the Smiths team reacted. No denial of the HIV medication, no explanation for the note, just a blanket statement calling everything false, baseless, and reckless. That's not how innocent people respond. That's how people respond when the truth is worse than the accusation. And then there's the federal interest. Sources say the FBI's questions aren't about the lawsuits themselves, but about the threats, the discs, and whether Jada's actions crossed into obstruction. You don't get that kind of attention for a messy divorce. You get it when there's a paper trail of intimidation, when witnesses start talking about being followed, when the word bullet gets used in a legal filing. The real question isn't whether Jada said it, it's what she was trying to bury when she did. Because the one thing both lawsuits have in common is the implication that the Smiths weren't just hiding affairs, they were hiding an operation. And operations leave receipts.
For retraction and false defamatory statements. This is from the Hirsch, Litchison, Young, and Polk.
This letter is filled with a bunch of lies and falsehood. In that letter, it says that
This office represents Willard C. Smith II. It has come to our attention that you recklessly and maliciously spread out white lies about our client and his wife in an interview published on or about November 8th on YouTube and again November 14th on 2023 interview on Instagram. And each of these two interviews amongst an avalanche.
The discs are the key. Salam hasn't released them, but he's made it clear they exist, and that's enough to change everything. In interviews, he's dared Jada to sue him for defamation, knowing she can't without risking a countersuit that would force the material into open court. "You can't sue somebody for telling the truth," he told the Breakfast Club. That's not bravado, that's leverage. And the fact that Jada's lawyer sent a cease and desist over his claims about her, not Will, is telling. It suggests the real danger isn't what Will did. It's what she recorded, or ordered, or used to keep people in line. The violinist's case adds another layer. If Will's team was comfortable leaving that kind of evidence in a hotel room, what were they comfortable doing in private? The HIV medication isn't just a detail, it's a signal. Either someone was reckless or someone wanted Joseph to find it. And the fact that the tour manager's response was to blame the victim, not investigate the incident, points to a culture where protection wasn't about safety. It was about secrecy.
Then there was another interview with TMZ just after that where one of the cameramen asked Jada, "Hey Jada, have you seen Will with any men before?" And her answer was no. So now that's a lie too, because I put out an interview with Will Smith grabbing Alfonso Rivera, squeezing his nipple and trying to put his finger in his right?
But the silence around this part is louder than anything said. Neither Will nor Jada has addressed the federal interest. No statements, no social media posts, no leaked sources close to the family, spinning a counter-narrative. That's not how you handle a PR crisis. That's how you handle a criminal investigation. And the fact that the only public reaction has come from their lawyers, using the same baseless language for two entirely different cases, suggests a coordinated strategy, which means the discs aren't the only thing they're trying to control. The other question no one's answering: where's the outrage from their inner circle? Where are the friends, the collaborators, the people who've spent years benefiting from the Smiths' image? The absence of support isn't just notable, it's damning. It means the people who know them best are waiting to see which way the wind blows. And in Hollywood, that only happens when the stakes aren't just reputational, they're legal. And this is where the story starts to bend, because if the discs exist, they didn't just start recording in 2021. This kind of operation, if that's what it was, would have years of material. Which means the open marriage narrative wasn't just a cover for infidelity, it was a cover for documentation. The kind you use when you need insurance, or blackmail. The kind that explains why a man like Bilal Salam, who once called Will his best friend, would suddenly need to flee the country. The kind that turns a marriage into a business and loyalty into a transaction. The lawsuits are just the beginning. The real story is what happens when the people who've been paid to stay quiet decide it's safer to talk. And if the FBI is already asking questions, it's not a matter of if the discs surface. It's a matter of who leaks them first.
Shocking allegations against Will Smith, a violinist who was a finalist on America's Got Talent and performed in Smith's band, is accusing the star of predatory.
The discs aren't the only thing connecting these cases. It's the way the Smiths' inner circle has been conditioned to react. When Bilal Salam first went public with his claims, the response wasn't just denial, it was a coordinated smear. Sources say Jada's team reached out to media outlets, including Megyn Kelly, to paint him as a liar, an opportunist, someone who'd never even met Will. But here's the problem. Bilal's face is in Will's autobiography. His name is in the acknowledgments, and the photos of them together at events stretch back decades. That's not the behavior of a stranger. It's the behavior of someone who was trusted until he wasn't. The real tell? The way the narrative shifted when Bilal dared them to sue. Suddenly, the attacks stopped. Because you don't sue someone who's lying when you know they've got receipts. You wait for them to slip up. Or you make sure they don't talk again. And in this case, the fact that the only pushback came from paid mouthpieces, not the Smiths themselves, speaks volumes. It means the real defense isn't happening in public. It's happening in backrooms with lawyers, with people who know what's on those discs and what it would cost if they got out. Then there's the matter of the violinist's firing and what it reveals about how Will's team operates. Brian King Joseph didn't just lose his job. He was replaced immediately, as if his role on the tour had always been temporary. That's not how you handle a personnel issue. That's how you handle a liability. And the fact that the tour manager's response was to accuse Joseph of lying, before even hearing his side, suggests this wasn't the first time someone had come forward. The pattern is clear. Report an incident, get labeled a problem, disappear. But the real question is, what happens to the people who don't push back? The ones who stay quiet, who sign the NDAs, who play along? Because if this is how they treat the ones who resist, imagine how they treat the ones who comply. The industry whispers about a culture of silence around the Smiths, where loyalty isn't just rewarded, it's required. And the price of disloyalty isn't just getting fired, it's getting erased.
My feelings for him are just sadness. I feel sorry for somebody who was a young man in a industry who I believe was completely violated and used by people without, his permission, and he had to just go with it because these were powerful men. And in doing so, he was promised more acting gigs, more career gigs, and none of that ever came. He was angry, upset, and it went down a very problematic route of substances, aggression, being charged, being arrested for bad things that he was.
The Diddy connection is where things get even messier. Terrence Howard's recent claims that Diddy made advances toward him, that Will Smith was in those circles, that the real power in Hollywood isn't just about money, but about what you're willing to do to keep it, aren't just rumors. They're a pattern. And the fact that Diddy allegedly backed away from a threesome with Will and Jada tells you everything you need to know. Even he had limits, but the Smiths didn't, because for them, this wasn't about pleasure. It was about control, the kind that requires documentation, the kind that turns private moments into leverage. And if the discs exist, they're not just recording intimate situations, they're recording transactions. Who was invited? Who complied? Who can be trusted? And who can't? The fact that Jada's legal team has been so aggressive in shutting down Bilal's claims, but so silent on the violinists, suggests they're not just protecting a marriage, they're protecting a system. And then there are the children. Jaden and Willow have been eerily silent through all of this, which is strange when you consider how vocal they've been in the past. Sources close to the family say Jaden's estrangement from Will isn't just about personal differences, it's about what he saw, what he knew, the way he'd flinch when his father touched him in interviews, the way he bought his parents' house, then moved them into an apartment on the property, as if he was creating distance while keeping them close. That's not the behavior of a son who's just upset. That's the behavior of someone who's managing a situation. And Willow? She's a mother now. She's got her own family to protect. Which means if she's staying quiet, it's not because she doesn't know. It's because she's waiting for the right moment to speak, or the right price for her silence. Because in this family, everything has a cost.
This is going to be groundbreaking what I'm doing, right? Because we're showing how people blackmail people, how people try to attempt to murder people, right? How people try to silence people, how people go to other companies to try to shut you down, fighting.
The FBI isn't just asking questions, they're getting answers. And the answers aren't coming from strangers. They're coming from the people who used to be closest to the Smiths. Former friends, assistants, even collaborators who once benefited from the family's influence are now sitting down with investigators, not out of loyalty to the law, but out of fear for their own survival. The whispers started months ago, when a handful of names began surfacing in connection with the federal probe. People who'd been in the inner circle for years, who'd attended private gatherings, who'd seen things they couldn't unsee. These aren't just random associates. They're individuals who had access to the house, to the conversations, to the moments that were never meant to be repeated. And the fact that they're talking now suggests they finally realized the same thing. if the Smiths are willing to threaten a man's life over an NDA, what are they capable of doing to someone who's already on the outside? The first wave of leaks reportedly came from a former assistant who worked for the family during the height of their Red Table Talk era, a time when Jada's transparency narrative was at its peak. This assistant, who'd been privy to late-night conversations, private arguments, and the kind of unguarded moments that only happen when people think no one's listening, allegedly provided investigators with detailed accounts of what went on behind closed doors. The stories aren't just about infidelity or arguments. They're about a household where boundaries were fluid, where loyalty was enforced, and where the line between personal and professional was deliberately blurred. The assistant's claims, corroborated by others, paint a picture of a family that didn't just live in the public eye, but weaponized their image, using access and influence to keep people in line. And now, those same people are the ones helping the FBI piece together a pattern that goes far beyond a messy divorce. What's most damning isn't just what these former insiders are saying, it's what they're not saying. The gaps in their stories, the moments where they hesitate, the way they refer to certain events as things we don't talk about. It all points to something darker than just marital strife. There's a reason why the federal interest isn't focused on the lawsuits themselves, but on the threats, the discs, and the way information was allegedly suppressed. And the fact that these former friends are only coming forward now, after years of silence, suggests they've either been paid to stay quiet until now, or they've finally realized that the Smiths' power is crumbling, and they'd rather be on the right side of the investigation than the wrong side of history. The real question is how many more are still out there, waiting for the right moment, or the right deal, to start talking. Because if the FBI is already getting this much cooperation, the Smiths' biggest problem isn't the lawsuits. It's the fact that their former allies have decided it's safer to betray them than to stay loyal.
It was my man, this is probably irreparable.
The real story here isn't just about what's on the discs. It's about what the discs represent. A marriage that was never about love, but about documentation. A power dynamic where loyalty was currency and silence was the price of admission. And a family where the children weren't just raised. They were trained to keep secrets, trained to play their roles, and trained to know that the moment they stepped out of line, the machine would turn on them too. The lawsuits are just the beginning. The federal interest is just the first sign that this is bigger than a messy divorce. The real question is what happens when the people who've been paid to stay silent decide it's safer to talk, when the discs surface, when the FBI's questions get answered, when Jaden finally breaks his silence. Because this isn't just a scandal, it's a collapse. And the only thing left to find out is who gets buried in the rubble. So here's where we leave it, because this story isn't over. Not by a long shot. The discs exist. The FBI is asking questions, and the Smiths' inner circle is starting to fracture. So tell us, do you think Jada's the mastermind or just the one holding the camera? Was Will a victim of her control or the most willing participant? And when the discs finally drop, who's going to be the first to flip? Drop your theories in the comments, because the one thing we know for sure is that the truth is worse than the rumors. And it's coming.